she said. "I'm just being honest. You should appreciate that," after admitting she'd choose another man in front of her parents. I replied, "Got it," set down my fork, thanked them for dinner, and walked out calmly while everyone acted normal, until a late-night notification revealed. I'm sitting in my living room at 3 a.m. trying to process what happened tonight. Still can't quite believe it went down the way it did, but I need some perspective because I'm questioning everything about the last 2 years. I'm Ronan, 35 MIC, work in sales for an industrial supply company. Not glamorous, but steady income, and I've managed to pay off my modest house and live pretty simply. Been with my fiancée Tessa, 27F, for 2 years, engaged for 6 months. She works at a dental office doing scheduling and admin work. Tonight was supposed to be a nice family dinner at her parents' place. Her mom Helene had been pushing for us to spend more time together as a family before the wedding, and honestly, I thought it was a good idea. I want to have a good relationship with my future in-laws. The evening started normally enough. Vernon, Tessa's dad, grilled some steaks. We had drinks on their back patio, normal small talk, but about halfway through dinner, the conversation took a turn that made me uncomfortable. Vernon started asking pointed questions about my finances. "So Ronan, that house of yours, is it in both your names now or just yours?" When I said it was just mine since I'd bought it before we got together, he exchanged a look with Helene that I didn't like. Then Helene jumped in with, "And what are your plans for giving Tessa the lifestyle she deserves? She's used to nice things." I tried to keep it light, said we were planning to build our life together and see what the future held. But they kept pushing, asking about my salary, my savings, whether I planned to upgrade to a bigger house, whether Tessa would need to keep working. I was getting annoyed but trying to stay polite when Vernon said, "You know, Tessa dated some very successful men before you. We always wondered if she was settling." That's when Tessa, who had been quiet through most of this interrogation, looked up from her plate and said with this little smirk, "You knew I'd choose him if he ever asked." The table went silent. I stared at her, waiting for her to clarify or laugh like it was a joke, but she just kept that same expression, like she'd said something clever. "Who?" I asked. "You know who," she said, still smirking. Here's the thing that really got to me. Her parents didn't look shocked. Vernon actually chuckled, and Helene just shook her head with this knowing smile like they were all in on some private joke. I put down my fork and looked at Tessa. "Are you saying you'd leave me for someone else if he asked?" "I'm just being honest. You should appreciate that." The casual way she said it, in front of her parents, like I was supposed to be grateful for her transparency about potentially dumping me, that was it for me. I stood up, thanked them for dinner, and walked out. Didn't slam the door, didn't make a scene, just left. Tessa followed me to the driveway, suddenly acting like I was overreacting. "It was just a hypothetical, Ronan. Why are you being so dramatic?" "Hypothetical about what? About you choosing someone else over me?" "You're taking it the wrong way. I was just making conversation. But here's what's bothering me most. This wasn't some slip of the tongue. The way she said it, the timing, her parents' reactions. It felt planned, like she wanted me to hear it. I drove home and I've been sitting here for hours trying to figure out if I'm overreacting. Part of me thinks maybe she was just being thoughtless, that she didn't mean it the way it sounded. But another part of me is wondering what kind of person says something like that to their fiancé in front of their parents. We're supposed to get married in 4 months. I thought we were building something together, but tonight made me feel like I'm just a placeholder until someone better comes along. Am I wrong for walking out? Should I have stayed and tried to work through it right there? Or was what she said as messed up as it felt? Update 1. The responses to my post really opened my eyes, especially the ones pointing out how calculated that dinner conversation seemed. I decided I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with before making any decisions about our relationship. When I got home that night, I did what any rational person would do. I started securing my space. Tessa has been staying at my place most nights for the past year, has a key, treats it like her second home. Given what happened at dinner, I wasn't comfortable with that arrangement continuing until we figured things out. So yesterday morning, I called a locksmith and had the locks changed. I also gathered up all of Tessa's personal items, clothes, toiletries, books, everything she'd accumulated over the months, and packed them neatly into bags. I set everything outside on the covered porch where it would stay dry. Then I sent her a text. Your things are on the front porch. We need to talk, but not in my house. She showed up around 6 p.m., and I could hear her trying her key before realizing the locks were different. When she rang the doorbell, she was furious. Are you seriously locking me out of what's basically my home too? This is my home, Tessa. You have an apartment with your roommate. You chose to spend most of your time here, but that was a privilege, not a right. This is insane. You're being controlling and dramatic over a stupid comment at dinner. That's when I told her we needed to have a real conversation about what that comment meant and who she was talking about. She kept deflecting, saying I was reading too much into it, that she was just making conversation. But here's where things get interesting. While we were talking on the porch, her phone kept buzzing. Every few minutes, another notification. Finally, she stepped away to check it, and when she came back, her whole demeanor had changed. Look, maybe I can explain this better if we go inside and talk properly. No, we can talk right here. That's when she made a mistake. She left her phone on the porch railing when she went to grab one of her bags, and the screen lit up with an incoming message. I couldn't help but see the name, D. The preview showed, "Did you tell them? How did they react?" I looked at Tessa, who had gone pale when she realized what I'd seen. Who's D? She grabbed the phone, but the damage was done. It's not what you think. Then show me the conversation. Of course she wouldn't. So I told her if she wanted any chance of salvaging this relationship, she needed to be completely transparent right now. After about 20 minutes of back and forth, she finally unlocked her phone and handed it over. The message thread with Dane H. went back weeks, but the relevant part was from right after the dinner. Tessa. I told them tonight, said it exactly like we talked about. Dane. And? Tessa. You were right. It definitely got his attention. He left pretty upset. Dane. Good. He needed to understand where he stands. When are you going to end it? Tessa. Soon. I just need to figure out the logistics. He owns the house and stuff. Reading those messages, everything clicked into place. The dinner wasn't about her being thoughtless or honest. It was a deliberate move, planned with her ex-boyfriend, designed to hurt and destabilize me. I handed the phone back and looked at her. How long has this been going on? It's not what you think. Dane and I are just friends. We've been talking about my relationship problems, and he's been helping me figure out what I really want. Your relationship problems? What problems? You know, the way you live, how you never want to do anything exciting, how you're so focused on security and stability instead of actually living. So you've been discussing our private relationship with your ex-boyfriend, and together you decided I needed to be taken down a peg. She started crying then, saying she never meant to hurt me, that she was just confused about her feelings. But the more she talked, the clearer it became that this wasn't confusion. This was a plan. I told her to take her things and figure out where she wanted to be, because it wasn't going to be with me. She kept saying we could work through it, that I was overreacting, that everyone has doubts sometimes. But here's what I realized, sitting there listening to her. Someone who loves you doesn't humiliate you in front of their family as part of a strategy session with their ex. Someone who respects you doesn't use your private struggles against you in conversations with other people. I'm done trying to figure out if I'm overreacting. I know what I heard, I know what I saw, and I know I deserve better than being someone's backup plan while they figure out if they can do better. The locks are staying changed. The engagement is over. And I'm finally understanding what real respect looks like. It doesn't require you to prove your worth through humiliation. Update 2, I thought the message thread was the end of it, but apparently, I was just scratching the surface of how deep this betrayal went. After my last update, Tessa kept trying to contact me. Calls, texts, showing up at my work, the whole routine. She alternated between saying she could explain everything and accusing me of being controlling and paranoid. I ignored most of it, but she kept insisting there were important things of hers still in the house that she needed to get. I was pretty sure I'd gathered everything when I packed her stuff, but to avoid more drama, I agreed to let her come by one time to collect anything I'd missed. I told her we'd do it during daylight hours, and I'd have my neighbor Lena present as a witness, just to keep everything clean and documented. But Tessa didn't want to work with my schedule. She wanted immediate access, wanted to come and go as needed, Wanted me to just give her a key until she was sure she had everything. That's not happening, I told her. You lost house privileges when you decided to humiliate me as part of your little game. That's when she said something that stopped me cold. Fine, but I'm going to need to get my laptop charger and some work clothes soon. I'll just have Dane help me get them. Dane doesn't have access to my house. She went quiet for a second too long. I meant, I'll have him drive me over when you're home. But something about the way she said it made me suspicious. That night, I started going through my security system logs. I have a basic doorbell camera and a smart garage door opener that keeps a record of when it's been activated. What I found made my blood run cold. Over the past 6 months, my garage had been opened dozens of times when I wasn't home. Times when I was at work, when I was traveling for sales calls, when I was visiting my family. The pattern was always the same. Garage opens, closes again about an hour later. I went back through my doorbell footage and found clips of Dane's car in my driveway during some of those times. Clear as day, this man had been coming and going from my house for months while I was away. I called Tessa immediately. Did you give Dane the garage code? I can explain. Did you give him the garage code? He was just helping me with things sometimes, like when I needed to grab something while you were at work, or when I wanted to surprise you by cleaning or doing projects around the house. Tessa, this man has been entering my home without my permission for months. He was helping me, and it's not like he was stealing anything or doing anything wrong. You're acting like he was some kind of criminal. He was trespassing, and you enabled it. She kept trying to justify it, saying Dane was just being helpful, that I was being paranoid and controlling. But what really got to me was when she said, besides, I basically lived there. It was my home too. I had the right to have people over. That's when I understood the depth of the problem. In her mind, she had already established ownership of my space. She had given access to another man, specifically, the man she'd told her parents she would choose over me, and saw nothing wrong with it. I told her that any remaining belongings she thought she had in the house could stay there, because she was never setting foot inside again. Then I called a security company and had them come out the next day to upgrade my entire system. But the story doesn't end there. Yesterday, I got a call from my neighbor Lena asking if everything was okay. She'd seen Dane's car parked in front of my house for about 20 minutes, and he'd been walking around the perimeter, checking windows and doors. When I asked her what time this was, she said around 2 p.m., right when I would normally be at work. Apparently, he didn't know my schedule had changed, and I was working from home that day. I called the non-emergency police line and asked them to send an officer by for a property check. I showed them the security logs, explained the situation with the unauthorized access, and asked them to note that this person was no longer welcome on the property. The officer was straightforward about it. If he comes back now that you've revoked access, it's criminal trespass. Keep your documentation handy and call us if you see him again. This isn't just about a failed relationship anymore. This is about my safety, my security, and protecting what I've worked years to build. The fact that Tessa thought it was acceptable to give another man free access to my home, and that this man is apparently still trying to get inside even after our breakup, tells me everything I need to know about the kind of people I was getting involved with. I'm changing all my codes again, installing additional security measures, and I've contacted a lawyer friend just to understand my options if this escalates further. The woman I thought I was going to marry spent months allowing another man to treat my home like his own. The level of disrespect and violation is something I'm still trying to wrap my head around. But at least now I know exactly what I'm dealing with, and I can protect myself accordingly. Final update. I thought this situation couldn't get any weirder, but apparently I was wrong. What happened yesterday finally revealed the full scope of what I was actually dealing with. Around 11 a.m., I heard cars pulling into my driveway. When I looked out the window, I saw Tessa getting out of one car with her parents, Vernon and Helene. Right behind them, Dane was getting out of a second car. All four of them walked up to my front door together. When they rang the doorbell, I answered through the intercom system I'd had installed. "What do you all want?" Vernon took the lead. "Ronan, we need to talk. This has gone on long enough. You're being unreasonable, and you're hurting our daughter. She's not my responsibility anymore." "Look, we know you're upset about what happened at dinner," Helene chimed in, "but Tessa was just being honest about her feelings. That's a good thing in a relationship." I came outside onto the porch but didn't invite anyone in. Being honest about wanting to be with someone else isn't a good thing when you're engaged to me. That's when Dane spoke up for the first time. Maybe we should just cut through the drama here. Tessa and I have history, and we've realized we want to be together. The respectful thing would be for you to step aside and let her be happy. I stared at him. The respectful thing? Look, no hard feelings, man. But she's made her choice. We're hoping we can all be adults about this. Vernon nodded like this was all perfectly reasonable. Dane's a good man, Ronan. He owns his own business. He's established. Maybe this is for the best. I was starting to understand what was really happening here. So you all drove over here together to tell me that my relationship is over and I should be okay with it. Tessa finally spoke up. We just want to handle this maturely, and I need to get the rest of my things from inside. You got your things a week ago. No, I mean my real things. The furniture we bought together, the kitchen stuff, the bedroom set, the things that are actually mine. I looked at her parents, then at Dane, then back at her. Tessa, we didn't buy furniture together. The furniture in my house is mine. I bought it before I met you. Dane stepped forward. Well, that's part of what we need to work out. Tessa's been living here, contributing to the household. She has equity in the situation. That's when it hit me what this was really about. Equity, Vernon cleared his throat. When two people have been living together for over a year, there are legal considerations about shared assets and living arrangements. I started laughing. I couldn't help it. You think Tessa has legal rights to my house? She's been paying bills, buying groceries, maintaining the household, Helene said defensively. She's invested in this place. She paid for her own food and occasionally bought groceries. She's never paid a utility bill, never paid the mortgage, never paid for repairs or improvements. Her name isn't on anything. Dane was getting frustrated. Look, the point is, we're trying to do this the easy way. Tessa needs a place to stay while we figure out our living situation, and this house has space for both of us temporarily. And there it was, the real agenda. Both of you? Just until we find our own place, Tessa said quickly. It would only be a few months. I looked at these 4 people standing on my porch, apparently having planned out how they were going to move Tessa's new boyfriend into my house, and I felt something I hadn't experienced in this whole mess. Complete clarity. Here's what's going to happen, I said. None of you are coming into my house. Tessa has no legal claim to anything here. I checked with a lawyer. If anyone sets foot on this property without permission, I'm calling the police for trespassing. You're being completely unreasonable, Vernon started. No, I'm being completely reasonable. I'm protecting my home from people who think they can manipulate and use me. I pulled out my phone and showed them the security footage of Dane entering my house over the past months. I have documentation of unauthorized entry going back 6 months. I've already filed a report with police. If any of you try to enter this property again, it's criminal trespass. Dane's face went red. You can't prove I didn't have permission. Actually, I can. Because I never gave you permission. Only Tessa did, and she didn't have the authority to do that. The whole group started talking over each other then, Tessa crying, her parents indignant, Dane getting aggressive. But I'd heard enough. This conversation is over. Get off my property. We'll see about this, Vernon said as they headed back to their cars. This isn't over. Yes, it is. After they left, I called my lawyer friend and told him what had happened. He confirmed what I already knew. They had no legal standing whatsoever. Tessa never had any ownership interest in my house, and her ex-boyfriend certainly didn't. But he also advised me to document everything and be prepared for them to try other angles. Maybe claiming abandoned property, maybe harassment, maybe just showing up again. The whole thing has been a masterclass in recognizing manipulation and entitlement. Tessa didn't just want to break up with me, she wanted to keep the lifestyle I provided while being with someone else. Her parents weren't just disappointed about the engagement ending, they were disappointed about losing access to what they saw as their daughter's claim on my assets. And Dane wasn't just trying to win back an old girlfriend. He was trying to move into a situation where someone else had done the work of building stability, and he could just slide into it.